silence before the storm. We will not be threatened. Never again. These were the bold words echoed from the White House podium in May 2018, just moments after then-President Donald Trump announced a landmark decision. The United States would formally withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal, known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA. The implications were immediate and far-reaching, plunging an already fragile region into deeper uncertainty. Trump's foreign policy stance, brash, unilateral, and unapologetically pro-Israel, created a new axis of tension in the Middle East. While Iran, battered by years of sanctions, accused the U.S. of economic warfare, Israel applauded the move as a victory against what it called Tehran's nuclear deception. This chapter unpacks the global ripple effects of that announcement. From missile tests in Tehran to hushed briefings in Tel Aviv, from oil tankers bombed in the Strait of Hormuz to furious debates in European parliaments, this was not merely diplomacy gone sour. This was a strategic dismantling of one of the most comprehensive non-proliferation frameworks in modern history. Trump's Iran doctrine, maximum pressure. At the heart of Trump's Middle East strategy lay a simple doctrine: exert maximum pressure on Iran until it either capitulated or collapsed. This strategy was multidimensional: economic, diplomatic, and psychological. It included the reimposition of sanctions on oil exports, banking, and key sectors of the Iranian economy, as well as blacklisting individuals and organizations aligned with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC. Simultaneously, Trump intensified Washington's alignment with Tel Aviv. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who had long opposed the JCPOA, found in Trump a willing partner. In return, Trump was seen as a benefactor of Israel's security, having moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Israel's silent war, sabotage and cyber tactics. While the White House fronted its foreign policy with press briefings and executive orders, Israel's war was largely fought in the shadows. In April 2018, the Israeli intelligence agency Mossad reportedly extracted thousands of documents from a Tehran warehouse, revealing details of Iran's nuclear program. Netanyahu presented the findings in a theatrical press conference, reinforcing claims that Tehran was still secretly pursuing atomic capabilities. Then came the explosions, mysterious fires at Iranian nuclear facilities, power blackouts at centrifuge halls, and malware attacks resembling the infamous Stuxnet virus. Though Israel rarely confirmed involvement, security analysts and leaked intelligence pointed in one direction. These covert attacks were not without consequence. They pushed Iran to fortify its defenses and accelerated its nuclear ambitions as a form of retaliation. Gulf flashpoints and regional fallout. In the Persian Gulf, tensions escalated further. In 2019, several oil tankers were sabotaged near the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. blamed Iran. Tehran denied involvement. Later that year, a drone attack crippled Saudi Aramco oil facilities, slashing the kingdom's output by half. Though Yemen's Houthi rebels claimed responsibility, Western intelligence agencies alleged Iranian orchestration. Meanwhile, the Abraham Accords brokered by the Trump administration saw the UAE, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco normalizing relations with Israel. While heralded as a step toward peace, many analysts viewed it as an anti-Iran coalition designed to strategically isolate Tehran. Global parallels and diverging paths. The Middle East power realignment also triggered global echoes. In Asia, India and Pakistan revisited their strategic doctrines around Iran, especially concerning the Chabahar port and its links to Afghanistan. China saw an opportunity to strengthen ties with Tehran, culminating in a 25-year cooperation agreement that expanded trade, infrastructure, and military coordination. Russia used the U.S.-Iran fallout to bolster its image as a power broker. Moscow increased arms sales to Tehran and advocated for Iran's inclusion in multilateral blocs like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Meanwhile, North Korea, watching Trump's handling of the Iran deal, tightened its own stance, realizing that American agreements could be reversed overnight. Across Latin America, Venezuela expressed solidarity with Iran, leading to direct oil shipments in defiance of U.S. sanctions. In Europe, public distrust of U.S. leadership grew. Germany, France, and the UK criticized Washington's move and attempted to salvage the JCPOA, albeit unsuccessfully. the Soleimani strike. On January 3, 2020, U.S. drones killed Iranian General Qasem Soleimani outside Baghdad International Airport. It was the most dramatic U.S. action against Iran in decades. Soleimani, head of the Quds force, was revered in Iran as a national hero. The Pentagon justified the strike by citing imminent threats to American personnel. Iran's response was swift but calculated. On January 8th, it launched over a dozen ballistic missiles at 2 U.S. military bases in Iraq. There were no deaths, but dozens of soldiers were later diagnosed with traumatic brain injuries. The moment was tense. The world watched to see if this would ignite a full-scale war. Back channels and cyber escalation. Behind the scenes, European diplomats scrambled to de-escalate tensions. Swiss intermediaries, who often act as neutral messengers between Washington and Tehran, relayed warnings and counter-warnings. Simultaneously, cybersecurity researchers reported an uptick in Iranian-linked cyber attacks on American infrastructure and Israeli tech firms. In April 2020, Israel reportedly carried out a cyber strike that temporarily shut down operations at Iran's Shahid Raji port. Weeks later, Iran retaliated with a cyber attempt on Israeli water treatment facilities. These tit-for-tat attacks mark a new front, one fought through firewalls and code. Political turmoil in both nations. While the region burned, internal politics in Iran and the U.S. were equally turbulent. In Iran, economic pressures fueled nationwide protests, brutally suppressed by the regime. In the U.S., Trump faced impeachment proceedings and an increasingly divided electorate. Netanyahu, too, faced corruption charges and political stalemate, clinging to power through fragile coalitions. Despite domestic crises, both leaders continued their aggressive postures on Iran, each using external threats to bolster internal support. Global shockwaves. The assassination of Soleimani became a symbol for other nations to re-evaluate norms around targeted killings. Turkey, India, and even Saudi Arabia debated the implications of state-sponsored assassinations. Global markets also recoiled, with oil prices surging amid fears of war. From Nigeria to Indonesia, governments with large Shiite populations expressed concern about instability. The ripple effect was both geopolitical and emotional, a reminder of how a drone strike in Baghdad could shake parliaments in Abuja or Jakarta. The day the deal broke. JCPOA in tatters. By 2021, the nuclear deal was all but dead. Iran had increased its uranium enrichment levels beyond JCPOA limits, installed advanced centrifuges, and restricted international inspections. While European powers tried to preserve the framework through diplomatic channels and mechanisms like Instex, these efforts bore little fruit. Biden's election sparked cautious hope. His administration expressed willingness to re-enter negotiations. However, years of distrust, the assassination of Iranian nuclear scientist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, widely blamed on Israel, and internal hardliner victories in Iran complicated any return to diplomacy. Regional polarization and long-term implications. The Trump era had redrawn regional alliances. The Abraham Accords signaled a Sunni-Israeli rapprochement aimed at countering Iran. But it also intensified Tehran's reliance on non-Western allies, China, Russia, and Venezuela. Strategically, the U.S. lost some diplomatic credibility. Critics argued that the abandonment of the JCPOA damaged global non-proliferation norms and pushed Iran closer to the nuclear threshold. Meanwhile, the threat of a nuclear-armed Iran prompted Israeli defense planners to prepare for unilateral strikes. Military drills and defense budgets reflected this grim new reality. Global realignment. The Iran-Israel conflict became a lens through which other geopolitical rivalries were assessed. From NATO's eastward shift and U.S.-China competition in the Pacific to regional alignments in the Horn of Africa, nations recalibrated their strategies in light of a post-JCPOA world. In Africa, countries like Kenya and Ethiopia courted Iranian and Israeli investments, each with strategic and ideological considerations. In Latin America, Iran deepened ties with Bolivia and Nicaragua, expanding influence in America's traditional sphere. The U.S.'s shifting commitment to long-term alliances forced Europe to accelerate plans for strategic autonomy. Discussions about an EU army and joint defense spending gained urgency. Conclusion: a world on edge. The Trump administration's Iran-Israel policy was bold, disruptive, and deeply consequential. It reshaped alliances, redefined diplomacy, and reignited nuclear fears. Whether seen as strategic clarity or reckless escalation, its legacy continues to shape the Middle East's volatile balance and influence global geopolitics.